And there we go. Okay, just give me a sec here. All right, so this is session number 2. It's called Automation Supernova. Last session, we've covered some of the concepts, basic concepts of Dynamo. And now we're going to go further and start automating lots of different Revit tasks. We're going to work with Excel files. We're going to work with Revit groups. We're going to renumber elements with a sequence and also based on the rooms they're placed in. But to start, well, first, if you missed the first session, you can easily find it back if you go to the membership of BIMPure. You can simply click on live events and you see the upcoming live events and then the past one. And yeah, you can click on watch now to watch the replays. This should be uploaded a few hours after the session ends. And yeah, this is, you can see the replay here. And also we've included the homework for the first one. So the homework is create a script to modify the top offset of selected walls to minus 150 millimeters. If you prefer to use imperial, that's about minus 6 inches. And optional was to prepare the script for the Dynamo player. That's something that we've covered very briefly on the previous session. So let's explore that. Let's go to Revit. So we have this project, and let's create a new script. There we go. We've got our empty space. So at the same time, we'll be able to revise some of the concept that we've covered. Just give me a sec here. Okay, there we go. So it should quite simply look a bit like this, where you select the model elements in Revit and set the parameter by name. That's the most basic way. So we'll add, the first thing I'll do is at the bottom left, if you remember, to set it to manual so the script doesn't run all the time. So we're going to select model elements. Pick the one with an S. There's a one that doesn't have an S. If you pick this one, it allows you to select multiple Revit elements compared to picking a single one. So we're going to use this one. And then we're going to add the set parameter by name, searching that, which allows us to set parameter value by name. So now I'm going to add a string node. I could also use the code block. And the value that I want to change is the top offset. So I'm going to plug that in the parameter name. I'm going to plug the elements, although nothing is selected yet. And in the value, 2 ways I could do it. I can double click and enter a value of minus 150, plug it in value. That could work. An alternative would also be to add a number node. It's the same result. The difference is that if I use the number node, I'll be able to let users customize this value in the Dynamo player. But if I run it directly in Dynamo, there's no difference really. It's the exact same thing. Okay, so now I will click on select. I go to Revit, and let's say that I pick both of these walls. And Sham mentioned before starting that the script didn't quite work. So we'll try to run it and we'll see what happens. So we run it and it says the parameter is read only. So if the script doesn't work, always have a look at the exclamation mark in yellow. And this says it has failed, the parameter is read only. So let's go back and see what is the problem in this case. So if we select both these exterior walls, you see the top constraint isn't connected and the top offset is grayed out, which means you cannot change the value. Even directly in Revit, I cannot change it. So I must set it to level 2, for example. And let's say that I put the top offset to something like this. All right. And I will go back to Dynamo and select these model elements again. Yeah, I missed that. Let's try again. Oh, I should do it in the floor plan view. It's going to be easier. Okay, so let's set this up to... Okay, there we go. So going back to Dynamo, I will select the model elements in Revit, both of these walls. And now I can, if I go back to Dynamo, I can see that I have 2 elements Again, you can remember this is the unique ID of the elements. And now if I run the script again, you can see the exclamation mark is gone, which means the script managed to work. I do see my two walls out here. And if I go to a 3D view, you can see that both of these walls, the offset has been set to minus 150. So if you remember what we've discussed last time, you know that our script is a bit flawed right now, right? Because if we select a bunch of things and we try to run the script, like this will give you a warning. And it will say the parameter is read only, and even in some cases doesn't exist because not only we have some walls, we also have other elements that are not wall, which is messing up the entire script. Right? Because we've selected rooms and doors. So it's just a very bad practice to have a Dynamo script that tries to change the parameter values of doors or rooms for a parameter that doesn't even exist. So if you remember last time what we did, we filtered to only keep the walls category. And there are a couple ways to do it. In this case, last time we've used, I'll show the first technique is to use the equal node. It's to verify if two values are equal or not. I will bring the string parameter, and in here I will enter the category that I want to look for, which is walls. There we go. And then I can use a node called getCategory. I will place this node called getCategory, and I will plug it here. Just move these elements out there. However, if you remember last time, we've also discussed that you must use the same units, especially if you compare this and this value. You will see that all of them are false right now, even though a lot of them are actually walls. So what is wrong here? Well, this output is a category, and this is a text, a string. So we must convert this output, which is a category. You can see the text is white, into an output that is a string, so a text. So there's actually a node for that, and it is called category name. And you can see that the input is category and the output is a string. So again, a text. And if I plug this this way and I run it again, you can see now that the first elements are all true, which means that true means that they are walls. It checks, it compares this piece of text with this piece of text. If they're the same, it will say true. If it's not the same, it will say false. All right, and then the next thing that I must do is another node that I mentioned last time, which is filter by Boolean mask, by bool masks. This one, which I use a lot, it's a key node, key concept, so remember to use it. And I will plug this this mask over here, and then in the list, I will bring back my original list of elements. So basically what this does, if the value is true, the elements will be kept in the list. If it is false, they will be removed from the list, or at least put in the output. So if I use a watch node, if you remember, that is used to see what's going on, and I plug it in, and I press run, you can see that only walls are kept in this node, right? And so afterwards, if I move these elements out there, and I use the in node to elements. This way I filter out everything that is not wall. I see there are a couple of questions. I'll get there. So let me just finish with this concept. And then again, remember last time, getting your scripts organized is important. This one is quite simple, but even then, I like to group the nodes together. It's just much more fun. So I will take all these nodes, create a new group, and you see I forgot to add this node into it. So I will simply drag and drop it there, right? And I will say select Revit elements, only keep walls, okay? And this one I will group them and say set top offset value to walls. And this one, since it is the inputs, I'll put it in this kind of pink. And this one, since it's the outputs or the, well, it's kind of an action. So I'll put it in action. Or you could use your own color code. The important is when you open the script, it's nice that it's kind of easy and straightforward to understand. Derek says, how did you view the list? So there are two ways that you can view list of elements in Dynamo. The first one is you hover your cursor where it says auto here, right? And then you just scroll down, you move your cursor here and click on the pin icon, and you can see the complete list of elements that have been brought inside of this node. And the second way to do it is to use a watch node. So I search for watch, I put it like this, and if I run the script, the list will always say there. You don't have to kind of pin it like you must do for the other node. And this one can be resized as well. At least it should, right? There you go. All right, so you can resize this. Okay, watch nodes, by the way, you can you see there's an input and output. It's the same thing. So it's basically just a pass-through. So the same information goes in and goes out. So you could set the output of the watch node and put in here. So if I run the script again, you can see, in theory, all of the walls have been set with this offset. So if I select this, you can see that this wall has been set to minus 150. If I try it again, but this time I change the value. Right now we have minus 150. Let's go to minus 175. I click run again. And now we can see that this, well, it hasn't been changed, in fact. Why not? The parameter is read only. So sometimes there's an issue where it's kind of the script needs to, if the script doesn't work anymore, sometimes I just close Dynamo and open it back up again. So this wall, I'll just call it wall offset, and I'll put it in the correct folder of the space camp. It's right here. Okay, that's good. I'll shut it down. I'll open it back again. You did not connect the wire. Yeah, maybe I forgot to connect something. What did I didn't connect? Everything is connected, right? Oh yeah, this one. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Brian and Domenico. Let's run it again, and now it works. And now it's set to minus 175. So in that case, shutting down the script and opening it back again wouldn't have worked. Okay. Okay, now something that I want to do is to bring the script to the Dynamo player. So again, as a refresher, what's the point of the Dynamo player? If you have users in your team, you don't want them to have to be forced to open this and be confused, don't know what's going on. The Dynamo player is a simple user interface that is much more user-friendly for people who don't want to have to open Dynamo, but you still want them to have access to this automation. So a couple of things you need to do if you want them to access the Dynamo player. First, you must set all the inputs, right-click on the node, set is input, okay? And in this case, let's say that we give user access to this number so they can add a custom value. We set it to is input as well. I will double click here and I will rename the node, and I will call this stop offset value. And let's say in this case, this script is only for the top offset. We cannot change this parameter in the Dynamo player. Okay, and if you remember last time as well, if you want to be good to your users, you can go to extensions and show the graph properties and just describe what the script does. It will be helpful for the users. Change the top offset value of selected walls. The other name could be impure, and you can enter a URL. I'm too lazy, I won't do it. And I also recommend adding a screenshot. I'm using a tool called Snagit. So in this case, check this out. I will just take a screenshot of this. Okay, this is my Snagit tool, and I will just have something like this. Okay, this is kind of cheaply done. Normally I would spend a bit more time, but it's just so you get the idea. So I call this top offset, and this image will be embedded with the Dynamo script. And if you send it, it's going to be used. Okay. There you go, top offset. So I add this image, and that's all good. I can save my script. And now I'm going to try to load it into the Dynamo player. So I shut this down and I go back to Revit. I open the Dynamo player. Okay, and I have this folder. Now I can add the folder in which the scripts are located. I click on the plus, and I guess it's Space Camp right here. So I'll just pick this folder. And here in the drop down, I pick the Space Camp, and I see two different scripts. And now the one that I want to use is the wall offset. So that's something you can set up for your users. You can set up the folder, and then you click here, click on the wall offset, and that will make you enter the script. And you can see the reason why you set the image, because it's a bit more fun for the users. So now I can select the elements. I will select a bunch of stuff, and I can set the top offset value. So instead of being negative, why not putting it at like 3000? And let's click on run. And there you go. It says there are some issues. Again, I would guess these are the read-only values that cannot be changed. But you can see that all the inputs that we've set as input can be changed inside of the Dynamo player. All right, so that's this week homework. So far, so good? Yeah? Okay, let's keep on going. Okay, so we've done this by adding the filtering. Of course, last week we've also talked about custom package. Let me open Dynamo again. And the whole thing that we did with the filter by Boolean mask, that could have been replaced with a single node from a custom package. In this case, we did use the one from a rhythm. Let me open the script again. So filter by category. Filter. Yeah, filter by category. So this node of the rhythm package could have replaced these 5 nodes, and it has the exact same result. The problem though, and why I don't necessarily recommend using a node like this, is that if the users that are going to use a script in the Dynamo player, if they don't have this package, this rhythm package installed, the script will not work. So in a lot of cases, it's okay to use custom package, but if it's quite simple to reproduce, like in this way, I prefer to use the native nodes because the users won't have the node cannot be found issue. So in this case, I would keep the script as is. Okay, we've done all of that stuff, and we've prepared a script for the Dynamo player. Okay, now we're going to start from this top offset script. I want to show you a script that I use a lot. It's a fun one, and I call it the universal parameter script. Why is it universal? Because it allows you to change any parameters of any categories, and it's going to be used to introduce a couple of nodes that are interesting as well. I like to use it in the Dynamo player as well. Yeah, you can see in this case we use the filter by category node, but we could also use the Boolean mask technique to avoid any wrong package issue. And the key thing here is that this script allows users to enter either a text value or a number value. So let me just find the script. Okay, so let's start a script. In fact, we're going to start from this one. All right. And in here, you can see this walls category. I'm going to set it as an input. So users can decide which category of elements they want to modify. So I will call this category. So it will appear in the Dynamo player. And okay, the rest is good. And now though, I want to let users pick between the text or a number value. And for that, I'm going first to add a number, and I'm going to add a string. All right, so users will be able to pick which one. So this one, I will just call this to make it obvious to the users, number value. And this one is going to be called text value. I'm going to right-click this one, set it as is input, and this one as well. Both of them are going to be inputs in the Dynamo player. And then I'm going to create a switch. So users in the Dynamo player, they will be able to play with a switch to decide if they want a number or a text. And to use a switch, it's called a Boolean node. Boolean node sounds super fancy, but it's basically a switch between true and false, or 1 and 0, or yes or no. And with that, I'm going to use as well a node called if. And the way that the if node works, I'm going to plug this true and false to the test. The number value is going to be true, and the text value is going to be false. So let me just enter a bogus value here. And I will rename this Boolean node as well and just enter what it does. So in this case, I will say true equal number and false equals text. And I'm going to right-click this and select is input as well, which means users in the Dynamo player will be able to switch between true and false. And instead of this value being used in the set parameter by name, I will use the result of this and plug it into value. And I'm going to group all of these nodes together. We'll create a group. And this will be called pick parameter type and value. So they pick if it's a number or a text. So this way I don't have to create one script that changes the text parameter and another script that creates change the text. So you can have both in the same script. So I don't need this watch node anymore. Let me just plug it like this. Okay, and now I can also change this parameter name, right? So instead of calling it string, I'm going to set it to is input and parameter name. So by default, it could be the top offset that works. Also, this should be the inputs. Did I forget something? I think that's pretty good so far. I think that's it, really. Or something that you could do as well is if you want to see the output in the Dynamo player, I like to set a watch node, and I can even group it and put it under review. So that's to review what's been happening. And if I right click on the watch node, I can set to is output. You would see what happens. And now in the graph properties, I should update the information. So I will just call this the universe script to change any values. And let's say that I want to update this image with something else. Why not this kind of brick? Of course, you should put something relevant, but I'm just too lazy to find one. Okay, so I could test the script right here inside of Dynamo before bringing it to Dynamo player, but you know what? I'm just going to save it with a different name. And this one is going to be called the universal script. Okay, and now you need to shut down Dynamo if you want to test it in the Dynamo player. Okay, you can see my universal script right here. I'm clicking on the script. Never press play immediately because you need to update some of these inputs. Okay, now you see there's a bunch of stuff going on here, right? And you need to select the model elements. You have this switch over here that says true equal number and false equal text. So let's say that I want to change a text value. Did I click on run? Okay, and and the parameter name, let's say that I want to change the comments and the number value, I can ignore this. And let's say that the text value, I'm going to put a space camp. And now I'm going to do a new selection. And I'm going to try to run the script and see what happens. And you can see, remember when I added a watch node as an output? Well, you can see all of the walls, and I can click on this. Can you click? Oh, maybe you can't. But you can see the unique IDs of all the walls that have been affected by the script. And if I click on this wall, you can see in the comments, it now says space camp. So all the walls that have been selected have been updated with this information. Let's try another category. So instead of walls, I could type in windows. So and make sure that you type the correct name. Is this plural? It is, right? So it says windows here. So if I didn't have an S, it wouldn't work. And let's say that for windows, instead of having a text parameter, I'm going to switch to sill height. So number value is 150. Let's say that I put the sill height at 600. And I need to flip the switch, right? Because it needs to be true since it is a number. So I will do my selection and I can run the script. And you can see that the height of the windows has been adjusted with my script. So I hope that you all understand this idea of the universal script. It's basically change any parameter of any selected elements. It works with both text parameters and number parameters. All right, all good so far? I see there are actually two good questions from Isham and Domenico, and it's about additional filtering. If you want to get, let's say in this case, we do have selection. So we could also use all walls in the entire model. That could be possible, but you could use additional filtering. So yeah, let's modify the universal script to create a new version where instead of doing a selection, it's yet all the elements, or at least we can add some filtering. So let's open Dynamo once again. Brian asked, can you make the category string at the categories node? That's a great question, Brian. Can we? Probably you could pick from this one. Probably I would have to, pretty sure you can, indeed. So that I put walls back in. Maybe that's better like this. So instead of typing, you can select from the dropdown. Let's try to save it and see if it works. Okay, and yeah, indeed, you can select the categories right here. Let's see if it works. So if I go to Windows, and instead of top offset, it's going to be sill height. You cannot have a drop down for the parameter, though. Pretty sure you can't. And let's set it at 1000. Let's select a bunch of elements and run it. Yeah, you can see what the problem is. My switch is still at false, and it gave a text value instead of a number. So I just need to flip the switch, and now it should run, and you can see that the windows have moved up. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good idea, Brian, to use the categories node instead of the text. So maybe my universal script is now improved. Okay, but what we wanted to do is actually to add some more filtering. Okay, so we've filtered to only keep elements of a certain category, but you can add additional filtering. In fact, I will go to the rhythm package. They have lots of good nodes for it, and I can see element filter. And one that I like is this one. You can filter by by name. What does this do? Is it the type name? I don't remember. Maybe it is. But in this case, I'm going to use by string value. Okay, so this is a node from a custom package, although you could use some default nodes to accomplish the same thing, but just to save a bit of time to cover other topics, I'll be using this one in this case. So this is from the rhythm package. It's called element filter by parametric string value. Again, string equals text. So I can only filter by a parameter that is a text value, such as comments, for example, or mark would also work. So in this case, I will plug in this in list over here, and I can add the parameter name. So the parameter name, let me create a new string value, and I will say it's the comments. And the value should also be a string. And let's rename the string node so I can use it inside of the Dynamo player. I will right click it and say is input. This will be the value. And filter methods, I simply need to type in equals, because I could say starts with or ends with, similar to when you use schedule, filtering and schedules inside of Revit. And this one I will call space camp. So if I run the script, you can see that I have 15 elements in my list. But if I went back and change I remove the comment space camp, or just put something else in the comments, and if I go back and I run it, you can see that I have fewer elements in my list, 2 less, because now there's less stuff, less walls with this value. Okay, so now let me just plug them in like this. And yeah, let's save the script again. And let's go back to the Dynamo player. And let's say that I have one of the window that I will enter the space camp comment, and the other I will enter no comments. Okay, so I will go back to the universal script. In the categories, in the drop-down, I will find the windows. There we go. This is a number value that I want to change, so we'll switch flip the switch to using true, and I must set the correct value. Let's say I go to 1300. The parameter name is cell height, and the filter comment is going to be space camp. So this is going to look in the comments field of this and only affect these windows. So I will select the elements, run the script, and you can see that only this window is affected by the script because it has space camp comment and not this one. All right. All right, so this universal script is pretty helpful. It's one that I do use quite a lot, frankly, if I have to modify values of multiple elements. Something else that it will do, final thing, and then move on. I see there's a question from Derek hoping to use Excel. We're going to talk about Excel after this one. So I'll go back to Dynamo. And let's say that instead of selecting elements, you're just going to go through all the windows in the entire project. So I'm going to enter the universal script. And basically all of this stuff I don't need anymore, right? So I'll just get rid of all of it. And I will select categories node. I will pick window, but once again, I could make it as an input. Okay. And then I will use a node call that we saw last session that is called all elements of category. I plug it in like this. And in basically every single window in the project, there's only 2 of them. I can add a few more. And then I can simply plug these in. So instead, I don't need to do a selection anymore. It will simply pick all the windows in the entire project. You can see only one matches these value. So I will save the script as the second version. I will call this universal script all elements instead of the selection. Okay, so let's, yeah, did I set this as an input? Yes, it is. So let's shut this down. Uh, and let's add a few more windows. And are they all, and let's say that only a couple of them should have the space camp comment. And let's go back to the Dynamo player. And let's use the universal script all elements. Again, we have the Windows category. The filter comments is SpaceCamp. The number value, let's set it to 300. The parameter name is still height. The text value, I can ignore it. Let's make sure that I set the switch to true. And if I run the script, you can see only the windows that have the SpaceCamp value are going to be modified. And if I enter nothing in the text value and I run the script, yeah, maybe it doesn't work in this case. Okay, let's say that this one I changed the value of the comments to hello, and I tried it once again here. In theory, only a single window is going to be affected by the script, right? Unless it is crashing on me. That can happen, unfortunately. All right, let's shut it down then. Okay, so that was the universal script, and we saw some additional filtering. Okay, let's move on. In fact, we'll be talking about Excel later on. So the last session, the first thing that we did was to create a sequence. So a bunch of numbers, and maybe some of you were like, what's the point of this? It doesn't interact with Excel. But now we're gonna actually learn what's the point of it. And we're gonna renumber doors. All right, so I'm gonna start a new script. So getting back to Dynamo. Going to create a new script. So I will select the model elements. I will switch from automatic to manual so the script doesn't run in a loop. Then I will bring in the categories and I will select the doors. Doors, there you go. And since I'm a bit lazy, I'm going to use the node of the rhythm package to filter by category instead of using the whole bunch of nodes, just to save a bit of time. And if you remember the filter methods, I'm going to set it to equal. Okay, and I will switch this to the floor plan view, and I will see if it works. So I'm going to select a bunch of elements, and I will run the script, and you can see here only the doors are kept. It doesn't say door, but you can see it's kind of the type parameters for the doors. And if I click on one of the number, it zooms in one of the elements. I can see it's actually doors. All right. Okay, the next part of the script is let's get back to creating a sequence like we did last time. So remember we had that sequence node, this one, and it needs a start, an amount, and a step. So for the step, it's going to be 1. So I'm simply going to double click and add 1. For the start, I'm going to use an integer slider. I don't want any decimals, so integer is a bit better. And I don't really need the slider. I'm just going to type in this element. So something interesting now is for the amount, it's the how many numbers are going to be generated. And instead of trying to make up a random number, why not just use the actual number of doors that we want to renumber? So I'm going to use a node called count. And what this does, I will run the script again. You can see it tells me the number of elements in this list. So I can see there are 13 doors. Remember that it starts at 0. So if you can look here, if you want to see how many doors we have. And if I plug it over here, an amount, and I run the script again, you can see that 13 numbers starting from 200 to 212 are generated. Okay. Uh, okay, the next step, I'm going to bring back the set parameter by name node. And I'm going to, in this case, I want to change the mark. So I will type in mark in the code block and set it as the parameter name. And I have a problem here. You can see that these outputs are blue. What blue means, it's a number. And the mark parameter in Revit for elements is a string. You can enter text. So I need to convert this number to a string. And we have a node for it. It is called string from object. This is to ensure, again, that we go from a number to a piece of text. And you see the color is going to change. If I run the script again, you can see that it's the same thing, except this is orange. Orange means it's text. So it's a number, but in form of a text. So you can do math with this one. So I'm going to plug it in as the values. And the elements, I'm going to bring back my doors that have been filtered. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out and have a look at what we currently see. You can see that the door numberings is pretty random, right? And now let's run this script. And it says run complete. And you can see all of the doors have been renumbered from 200 to 212 for this one. So we've combined generating a sequence with renumbering the doors. So you might be wondering, in what orders is it actually renumbering the doors? Well, it is in this order. It is based on the unique ID. So typically it means the first element that has been created in Revit will appear first in the list, and the last element that was created will appear at the bottom. There are ways you could try to reorganize them. That's what we'll do when we use Play with the Rooms. But this is the default stance that it does. Milton asked, numbering the doors would only work if they have room numbers. That's for the next step. So currently we're not playing with the rooms at all, right? So we just entered a somewhat random number. Something that you could do is, what if you want to add a letter or a prefix or something like that? First, I look at my scripts and I'm bothered by the fact that it's a bit messy. So I will start to use group and select elements and only keep doors. In this one, these nodes, I will group them together. Oh, not yet, in fact. And this, I will group this and say set mark value to doors. Okay, now let's say that I want to add a prefix. Let's say that I want to add a letter, or maybe even with a separator. So something that I could do is just do a very simple equation with a code block like this. And I could add a string node as well. And let's say that I'm going to use a suffix in this case. So a letter that is added after the number. And let's say that I use A, for example. And in the code block, I could very simply type in A plus B, or no, let's do X plus Y. And when I enter X plus Y, I have two inputs that open in my code block. So what I could do is put the string into X from the number and put the prefix in Y. And if I run the script, it's like a very simple equation. You can see what happens to my number. I have 200 in A, 201 A, and so on. And I can plug it in into the value. And if I run the script again, you can see that all the doors have been renumbered and with this A prefix at the beginning. What if you wanted a separator on top of that? So 200-A. Well, you could directly in the code block, something that you could do is type in between quotation mark, add the dash symbol and the plus again. That's quite simple. And you can see now that the numbers are 200-A, and that's what I see in the Revit file as well. And what if you wanted to customize a separator for the users to change it in the Dynamo player? Well, in this case, I would have to add a new node I could rename the name of the node to separator. And let's say in this case, it will be x plus z plus y. Let's say I put underscore as the separator and I run it. And you can see now that my value for the doors are 200 underscore a, and so on, as you can see here. All right, so are you all following me with these numbering tricks for the doors? Yes? Okay, good. So yeah, a key thing here is using the list count for the amount. So just to ensure you don't have a bunch of useless numbers or too many numbers or too few numbers. That's something that I've learned later on in my Dynamo journey. You know, all my scripts I just use to generate like 300 numbers, just so I wouldn't run out of them. That's before I discovered that you could use this node instead. Okay, we all saw all of it. That's good. Okay, so that's a bit boring because it's just a random number and it's not based on any information in Revit. So the next script is going to be with doors again, except that in this case, we're going to play with information from the rooms, right? So it's actually going to refer to a good value. Okay, so should I start from, yeah, okay, let's start from this script, except we're going to switch a few things. So there's a node in the Clockwork package. It is called door point rooms. Is it though? Let me see in the Clockwork. Door point rooms. You can see the search tool in Dynamo is not always good. I type exactly this and it didn't show up for some reason. Okay, and you can see this is from a custom package. In fact, just a little tip. If you want to know if a node is from a custom package, zoom out. And you can see this one has this kind of, it becomes purple with this kind of box. You know, it's from a custom package. It doesn't do it with the rhythm node for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, but anyway, we're gonna plug in. First, I'm going to freeze this node so it doesn't change the parameter over and over again. So right click and freeze. And now I need a phase as well. So I'm going to bring the select phase node. And I'm assuming that all my doors have been placed in the new construction. I'm just going to verify. Yep, new construction. Okay. So for some reason, this node requires you to enter the phase. Okay, so I will run it and I can have a look at this. First, it brings me the rooms in which these doors have been placed for all of the rooms. Okay, let me just move all of that stuff. Okay, for now, I want to focus on selecting the doors. So again, we've select the doors. We plug it into this node that get the from room and to room, you know, that information that you can typically see in schedules. And now the thing that I want to do is group the doors by the rooms in which they're placed in. Okay, so I'm going to introduce, I have this key node alert, one of my favorite node, extremely helpful. It is called list group by key. And it allows you to group elements per a certain parameter key. In fact, if you're used to working with Revit schedules, it's extremely similar to when you group elements in a Revit schedule. So for example, you have a bunch of rooms and you can group them by the wall finish, for example, right? You could select the wall finish and they're going to be grouped together. Well, this node does the same thing. It's going to create list based on a specific parameter. In this case, going to be the room that doors are placed in. So if one room has 3 doors, you're going to have a list of 3 doors. So what I'm going to do is add this node. It is called list group by key. And in here, the keys are going to be the 2 rooms. And the list is going to be the doors. And I'm going to just add a watch node for both the groups and the unique keys. So if you look at this element, you can see each list represents a room, a different room. You can see only this door, this room has 3 different doors, and this one has 2 of them. Okay? So let me delete all of this stuff, and I'm going to start again afterwards. So everyone understands this part so far, right? We've grouped all of the doors based on the rooms they're placed in. It's just to organize the data in a way which makes it easier afterwards to create unique marked values. Okay, so now I want to count. I'm going to create my sequence once again. Going to restart the step. I have my sequence. The step is going to be 1, so there's going to be a difference of 1 between each number. And for the amount, I'm going to use my count again, my list count, and I'm going to plug in this information. The problem, though, is with the list count, by default, it tells me 10, all right, which is not good. I want to have a list of all the rooms and with this number. So that's when I'm introducing the concept of list levels. List levels, it tells you which level it's counting. So currently it's just counting how many lists I have, and I want to go a level further and count how many elements there are per sub list. So to be honest, it can be a bit difficult to understand all these concepts. I'll be very honest, sometimes I just use trial and error until it works when I'm working with that. But let me show you exactly what's happening. So if I don't do anything, this gives me number 10, and that's because I have 10 lists in this case. But that's not what I want. So I'm going to click on this arrow and click on use levels, and I want them at level number 2. And if I run the script again, you can see it creates 10 lists, each with a number. So instead of counting how many lists we have, and give me return the number 10, it's going to go into the sublist and check, oh, there's one element here, there's one element there. And you can see it reproduced the same structure, right? So it just counts different things, and this is what I need. Okay? Everyone is comfortable with this concept? Again, I'll be honest, sometimes it's a bit of trial and error when you're playing with levels. So there's a logic behind it, I understand it, but sometimes I just kind of mess around until I get the result that I want. Okay, now the next thing that I want to do is use a node called room number. And it's going to, so we're just going to move this around. I have going to plug this into the amount. And I'm going to plug the unique keys over here. What's going on here? Seem to have an issue with this one. That's okay. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I have my completed version of the script, not too far. So I'm just going to shut that down. Okay, and I have my renumbered doors based on room script. This one is complete, but you can see it's basically the same value. So let's try to run it again. What's wrong with this? Is this from a custom package? It should be working, right? Yeah, I think the issue that I have right now is that these doors are probably going outside, and there are no doors that are, no rooms placed over there. So I'm going to try it again and see what happens. I'm just going to freeze this one for now and try to run it. Okay, you can see it seems to be working now. One of them is producing a null value though. Do I still have, or maybe this is the elements. You know what? I'm going to create a new project. Or maybe delete all of these groups. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, I think that my model groups were messing up. You see, now that works. Okay, so I have my room number and I have all the unique rooms that are being used. And I have my sequence, and you can see that the number is automatically generated. So unique numbers are created for each room in the project, right? And I can even decide if I want a suffix letter. So for example, I could enter B in this case. Okay, and let's unfreeze this node and let's try to run it once again. And you can see that suddenly all my rooms are named after, for example, this, I have the presidential suite, nothing less than that. And the room number is 108, and we have 3 doors going into the direction of the presidential suite. And they've been renamed to 108-A, 108-B, 108-C. If I go back to my Dynamo script, there are a couple of options that I can change in this case. For example, I could use a number as the suffix. So in this case, the suffix number is going to be 1. I think I can also change a separator, right? It's kind of hidden here. But the separator, let's say that I want an underscore, and I run it once again. You can see now I have door number 108 underscore 1, 108 underscore 2, 108 underscore 3, and so on. Domenico asks, is it possible to connect doors of an architecture model to rooms of an area and rooms models? If you want to work with Revit links, it is possible, but there are extra steps. You need to use nodes that they go and fetch open information into a specific document. So a few extra steps are required to make it work. So it is possible, but you have more node and more information than this. Okay, are these concepts clear for everyone? Do people understand the concepts of this renumber by rooms? Clear as mud. That's not a good sign. Well, I'll add that all these scripts are going to be available, so you can play with them, open the script, and play around with them. But overall, so to remind what this does, we get all the doors in the script. We group them by the room number to placed in, and then we generate a unique number. And for each room we have, based on how many doors, we'll create a number of elements for all of them. And then we set the mark value. So yes, that's right. It's a lot to take in. I get it. So I think the previous one, we were just renumbered doors with a random sequence number is a good first step to get started. And then you can kind of play with this one and change a few nodes, a few values to understand what's going on. Okay. Yeah, Brian says the hardest part is probably understanding what nodes are out there and exactly what they do. That's a good point, and even myself, every time I use Dynamo, I find out about new nodes. I think the best way is playing with scripts that others have made. And I've learned, oh, actually, I've been doing scripts in one way, and it was this node that could have saved me a lot of time. Sham talks about the revision cloud scholar. Yeah, we won't have time in this session, but I'll try to keep a bit of time in the next one for it. John asks, because a custom package has to be loaded by user in order to make it work in the player, can custom package be loaded on user's workstation remotely all at once? I don't think so. Maybe? That's a great question. I'm not sure. So that's why I prefer to use not too many custom packages, but in the case of this one, the clockwork, it's a bit difficult without this one. It's probably possible, but a bit difficult. Alex B says, I have. Yeah, so you have managed to deploy. Yeah, I'm sure there are ways to hack your way around it. I've just never done it to deploy all these custom packages. Rosanna asks, is it possible to organize a bunch of scripts and run them in a project in sequence automatically? Yes. And it is by, oh, do I have it installed? I'm not sure. Yes, with this great free plugin, it is called the Dynamo Multiplayer. It's amazing. I can believe it's free. And you can select a bunch of Revit files and load them here. And then you can select a bunch of Dynamo script. You can have 10 scripts and they run in a sequence in the Dynamo and Revit models you have selected. So that's called the Dynamo Multiplayer. You can even schedule, for example, run the scripts on all these models at 5 p.m. on Friday. If you have model health, for example, you can run them all at once. It's free. Dynamo Multiplayer by Bird Tools. Okay, now let's start. Let's work with Excel. And the first script, it's going to be quite simple. So one step less complexity than the one that we've just add to renumber the doors based on the rooms. And where, creating work sets is boring. You start a new project, manually create them and add them. So I will shut this one down, and you will see the script for the Excel is quite simple for the work set. So let's create a new script. And there's what name is it? File from path. So I have this node called file path. And then, there's kind of a series of nodes that you have to select. And then it's file from path. So basically, this is and let me make it manual. Basically, when you want to load an external file to Dynamo, you always have to use these two nodes together. So file path and the file from path, and you just plug them in like this. And then there's a node called data import Excel. Okay, so that's the key node you're going to be using whenever you want to work with Excel. So the rest is quite straightforward. You just plug in the file to file. And after, you need to enter the sheet name. If your Excel file has multiple sheets, you must ensure you have the correct name. So if you want to make it custom in the Dynamo player, you can use a string node. By default, it's typically sheet 1. So I'll just use sheet 1 and plug it in the sheet name. And then these are two options that are basically true or false. If the show Excel, it open Excel each time you run the script, can be a bit annoying. And read a string, I'm just going to set them to false as well. There we go. So I will put this false like this. This node still works even if you don't enter this false information, but it's an extra step of caution that I like to take. Okay, so now I will open Excel and create a very simple file. So let's say that I have a bunch of work sets that I want to create. Let's say that I have A architecture, A interior, and Z CAD. Let's say that's it for now. So this is called sheet 1, and I will save this file into the SpaceChem folder. Okay, so I'll call this work sets, and now I can. I have my Excel file. It's been saved. You can see how simple it is. So I will just close this, click on Browse, and pick the work sets file that I've just created. And I will run the script just to test what's going on. And if I look at this node, you can see that I have the information inside of the Excel. And so something that you notice though, is that it created a different list for all entry, uh, for all rows, which is kind of annoying. I would prefer to have them in a single list. So in this case, we're going to use a node called list flatten. What this does is that it brings these sublists and put them all together into the same one. So I'm going to put this in, and the amount is going to be 1. So basically, how many lists or how many lists you want to flatten. So I'll run the script again, and I'm going to explain exactly what this does. So you can see that previously we had a list of lists, and each list contained a single information from Excel. And with the list flatten, we've brought them all into a single level. Okay? Okay, so since I like to keep my scripts well organized, I'm going to group all of this stuff together. And I'm going to call this import Excel and flatten list. And I'm going to set this as inputs. Okay, next, there's a node in the parametric monkey package. Do I have it installed? Yes, it's right here. And this one is called, does it work? Work sets, create and rename default. You know, whenever you create a new work shared file, there are always 2 default work sets created, work set 1 and work set called shared levels and grids. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is plug the list of from Excel into the new work sets name. And then I need to find names for the shared levels and grids and the work set 1. I'm going to create string nodes. So this one, this is a good question from NLG. If you can make it into the Dynamo player, yes, we'll prepare the script so we can do it. And I'll call this new name for shared levels and grids. And I'm going to copy this one and call it new name for work set 1. And let's say that is, I'll just call this cool work set in share levels and grids. I'll just keep it at share levels and grids for now. Okay, and I will put a watch node. So if I run the script right now, what's going to happen? It's not going to work because my project is not work shared yet. I'm going to return to Revit. And I'm going to create a new work shared file out of this. So clicking on work sets. Yeah, maybe I should create a copy just in case. Okay. So this one, I'm going to save it as work shared. And now I'm going to create the work sets. I'll leave these 2 as they're currently named. Yeah, Derek asks, what is the green G that keeps popping up? It's indeed the Grammarly plugin. It can be a bit annoying sometimes, that marker. Okay, so now if I go have a look at the list of work sets, I can see shared levels and grids and work set number 1. And let's try to run the script and see if it works. You know what? First, I'm going to create a new group. This one is going to be actions, create and rename work sets. And this one, I'm going to call this results or watch. And this is going to be review. Okay, let's try to run the scripts and see what happens. It says null. Maybe it didn't work. That would be a bit embarrassing. Let's see. It actually didn't work. All right, but I do have the scripts somewhere. Where is it? I have it somewhere in my Dynamo player. That honestly, I'll be very honest, that happens, that can happen quite a lot with Dynamo. Sometimes it doesn't work for some reason. So troubleshooting is part of the game. Yeah, people are asking about the Grammarly plugin. Indeed, it's just spell check with some AI tools inside of it. So give me a little sec here and create work sets from Excel. I do have a completed version of it, so we'll see if it works. You know, I'll be honest, I didn't test it on Revit 2025. So a possible reason why this isn't working is that, yeah, you see, I've just added the file to the folder. So I'll use this one. It's maybe that the node that used to work in older version doesn't work anymore. That node from the parametric monkey. That's kind of one downside of Dynamo, is that between different versions, things might not work. But I assure you that this script, this exact script, used to work in older versions. Yeah, and maybe people are mentioning that maybe it's just a thing of permissions, and that if I was to create a new local file, maybe it would work. That's a great point. Yeah, that might be it, honestly. So if I save this file and I create, that might be the exact reason, now that you mention it. I didn't create my central file. I didn't follow my own guidance and steps. Okay, you can see this icon. It means that it's a central file. So I will open a local copy and see if it does work. Let's try it again. So I have my script. We'll open Dynamo once again. Or I could simply use the Dynamo player right here. So I can browse to find the worksets file. The Excel sheet name is going to be sheet 1. And I'm just going to enter random values, and we'll run the script and see if it works. Huh. Interrogation mark. Not a good sign. You know what? Now to think about it, I think it's almost certainly an issue with this node. Not working, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to recheck on the next session. I'm going to confirm, but I'm almost certain it's a problem of compatibility with the node. So telling you that with Dynamo, that's kind of an issue that you have to think about this kind of stuff. Let's move on. So I have, so I see the amount of time we have left. I have two more topics for you. One of them is generating room from an Excel file, and the other one is playing with model groups. So I'm just curious in the chat if there's a topic that you would be more interested in than the other. We can, since we're already talked with Excel, we can keep on talking about this topic, right? Or else we could skip to model groups, but I figure that we wouldn't maybe have time to reach to that level. Exporting to Excel. I like it. I wasn't supposed to talk about it, but that can certainly be done as well. Okay, so then the next script that I want to talk to you about is quite similar to the one that we've just did. And let me open Dynamo once again. So in this case, I will just get rid of this stuff. So in this case, I want to start from an Excel sheet and create a list of rooms. Okay, but instead of using the list flattened, I don't need it anymore. I will use a node called list rest of items, and it will explain exactly why I'm doing that. So I will modify this file, and in this case, I want to reproduce this information. So I have, let me just take a screenshot. I will quickly reproduce it. So I have the name of the room, the number of the room, the department, and the area required. Can even put it bold. And I will have Bob's office, Gina's office, and Mary's office. And I can enter name, just so I don't conflict. Let's say this is 301, 302, and 303. The department is going to be office, office, and CEO. The area required, this is the square footage of each office. And let's say that's it. I'm simply going to save as. And this one is going to be, simply call it rooms. Okay, so I'll keep this not too far. Let's go back to Dynamo. And in here, I will browse to select this new rooms file, and I will run it. Okay, and here you can see that I have a list of all the columns, right? And here I've used a node called the rest of items because I decided to ignore the first row and only keep the other rows because I don't really care about the headers, assuming that I know what I'm looking for exactly. And now I'm going to use a node called list get item at index. And what this allows us to get, if I put, and let me create something like this, I will explain what I'm doing afterwards. Let's start with the first one. So this is going to be the indexed, and I'm going to put in the list of the elements like this. So currently I have this list, so this would be only Bob's office, right? But in fact, it's not really what I want. I want to get the name of the rooms for each one. So that's another case where I need to pick the first elements from the sublist. So I'm going to set this to list level 2. So you can see the difference in this case, it gets me all the room names. And now I can copy and paste this node. And in the index, I use number 1 in this case. So let me explain what index means. It means that you go pick a specific list. So in this case, it picks list number 0, and since I've set to level 1, it goes to 0. So you can see this is 0, this is 0, this is 0, right? In this case, for this one, I'm picking level 1. So you can see this is level 1, this is level 1, level 1. You get the idea, right? So this is what an index inside of a list is. It allows me to pick specific numbers of elements inside of a list. So this one is going to be number 3, and this one is going to be number 4. Yes, number 3, sorry. Let's try that again. Okay, so you see that I've managed to get all my values. I have the room name, I have the room number, I have the room department, and I have the area required. All following me so far? Understand that this picking elements at index might be a bit complicated. That's okay. If you have an Excel that you want to import into Revit, you can do something similar and simply copy this information, quite frankly. So yeah, in this case, this is an area required. Let's say that we want this to turn into a number. You can see this is orange, which means it is a string. So I want to convert to number. So there's a node uh, this node is called string to number, and if I place it here, it's the opposite of what we did earlier. You can see now it is blue, so it's a number I can do math with. It can be used for an area or a top offset value, for example. Okay, now there's a node from the Clockwork package called room unplaced by unplace. Yeah, this one. You can see that the nodes from Clockwork are represented by this yellow gear. So I place this one. So it creates unplaced rooms. You know, in Revit, you can create rooms even if they are not placed inside of the model. You can use them as the drop-down selector. So in this case, it also needs a phase. I can simply ignore it for now. It doesn't really matter. And the room number is this value, right? So I'll plug it like this. And the room name is going to be this. And then it gives me it's going to create the room. Afterwards, though, I want to set extra parameters. I have two more. I have the department and the area required. So I'm going to set parameter by name, set parameter like this. And after the rooms are created, I want to set extra parameter twice, not only once, but twice. Like this. And the parameter name, the first one is going to be department. And the second one is going to be area required. So this is the name of this parameter. And the values, I'm going to pick them from out here, like this. The problem, though, is right now, I don't have an area required in my Revit model. This is a custom parameter. So I'm going to go to project parameter, create a new parameter that I call area required. And I will pick the rooms category. It should be an area value. This is by instance. Okay, this is good. And just to be sure that everything is fine, I'm going to create a new room schedule in my project so I can verify the information that I did import from Excel. The room schedule. I'm going to have the name, the number, the department, and the area required. So I already have, probably I should rename these rooms. So these are rooms that already exist in my model. So let me just rename some of them so they don't get confused. I can see in Dynamo, I've used number in Excel 301, 302. They shouldn't get mixed up. Let me simply freeze this node and run it once again to see if everything is right. It seems like it. So now I just hope that this node still works in Revit 2025. That's because everything else seems to be set to work in this case. So does everyone understand at least the key concepts in this case to create rooms from an Excel spreadsheet? So once again, this is Excel, and we're getting specific rows of information by using the get item at index. And once again, this one looks at index number 1. And index number 1, you can see it's always the room number, 301, 302. And this one looks at index number 3. And index number 3 is 13 and 18 and 17. Okay, let's unfreeze these nodes, and I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that it works. If it doesn't, it's because of version problem. All right, let's do it. Run completed. Okay, so it seems that I have 3 new unplaced room. And there you go. You can see that I have Bob's office, Gina's office, and Mary's office that have been added to my room schedule inside of Revit. And these are unplaced rooms. So whenever you create a new room inside of Revit, you can click here in the drop-down menu. And let's say that I want to place Bob's office. So I'm placing Bob's office. And the benefit, this is technique, an actual workflow that I've used with a client, that they had a program with a square footage to respect, or square meters to respect. And in this case, you can also add the area. Why does it say not placed? I've just placed it. Or maybe not. Okay, let's try it again. Let's say that I remove the printer room and I'll place under one from the drop down, Bob's office. There you go. And if I go to the room schedule, for example, you can see that the area required for Bob's office is 13 and my area is 16, so it's fine. But if it was smaller, there are ways that you can change the values. It appears as red in the schedule. So it's a good way to ensure that you've followed the program. Okay, in the slides, if you want to try the script by yourself, you can follow all of the steps. All right, so I see the time. I didn't expect that we'd get there. Maybe I'll just gonna do a quick demo of this one. I won't have time to explain all of it. So let me just shut this down. And then I'm gonna take some questions. Okay, I'm supposed to have a file with some groups in there. Okay, I have my groups right here. Okay, so these are, let's say that you're doing multifamily housing and you have, this is apartment one and this is apartment two. Let's say that you want to create schedules of every single element included in each group. And you want to have unique numbers to indicate if the elements, which group they're placed in. So this is a script that I made for a client. I'm going to open Dynamo. Oh, you can see, oh, this is interesting. There's something that doesn't work. You can see it says that I don't have the correct version of the Clockwork package install, and the workspace reference opens. You can see this red alert. So it's a great sign that Dynamo is telling you, hey, you need to install this custom package, even though I thought I had Clockwork, but maybe I don't have the correct version. So what you can do to fix the issue is click here on install specified version. And you might have this pop up telling you, hey, you sure you want to do it? And it has conflicts, blah, blah, blah. And I guess there's an older version that was installed. So again, that's kind of one of the downsides of playing with Dynamo. Even there, it doesn't seem to be working. Is there... Maybe I should use this one instead. Maybe it has been revamped. So I'm going to play with it and see if it works. That's part of the Dynamo troubleshooting. It's a bit annoying, to be quite honest. But what has happened in this case, if you select the elements, you can see that they now have the group instance and the group type that they've acquired from the group name. So this is apartment 2. And if I tab select this wall, it has the group instance apartment 2-1. That's because that's the first instance of this apartment. And this one would be apartment 2-2. So for each different instance, they're going to have unique numbers. And this allows you, when you create scheduling, to filter by the apartment number. So if you want to know which doors are part of which apartments inside of model groups, this is a group that's super helpful and that I've also used with the modular industry. All right, so that's the key things that I wanted to share today. Lots of concepts, but you can see these all the scripts that I've showcased are things that I've developed with multiple clients to automate some of their boring, tedious work, renumbering doors, incredibly boring, manually creating work sets. Well, you don't have to. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. and just creating, in this case, we only had 3 rooms that I've seen clients use this very script where we import rooms that they had a list of like 100 rooms along with the entire program. So I'm going to stop the recording